Hello everyone, my name is KingStix, and today I'm going to be showing you the best runes and builds for Warwick Jungle. I really wanted to make this video because I've made a lot of content on Warwick. I want to clear the air and give you guys the best runes and builds that'll help you out for Season 8 in League of Legends. Let's go over Warwick's runes first. For your main page, you're always going to be taking Precision. It's by far the strongest page on Warwick. It's going to be buffing his auto attack, which is the vast majority of his damage and pressure. The only thing that actually changes on the precision tree is the keystone. You're either going to be taking lethal tempo or press the attack. Personally, I prefer lethal tempo. I feel like it does a lot more for me, especially since I'm really good at counter jungling and putting out pressure before I'm level 6. For many newer Warwick junglers or lower elo Warwick junglers, they seem to be having more success overall with press the attack. If you are newer to Warwick, I would recommend taking press the attack, but if you're a veteran Warwick, plat 1 and up, or if you really know what you're doing on him, I would highly recommend lethal tempo because overall it is way stronger than press the attack in the early game. The next 3 you'll be taking down the precision tree, never change. Next you're going to be taking Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Originally I thought Overheal might be good on Warwick, but the truth is his true healing comes out whenever he's below half HP and lower, so there's really no point of taking Overheal since that only gives you an excess shield when you're already full HP, which is very hard to get on a melee champion anyways. Many people seem to think that taking the Tenacity on Warwick is good. In reality, I don't recommend it, especially if you are good on Warwick, because if you are using your Q and your ultimate properly, you can negate the vast majority of enemy CC anyways. That is why I take Alacrity. Alacrity is way better in the early and mid game anyways, and like I said, you should be able to dodge most of the enemy CC with your Q and ultimate. For your secondary tree on Warwick, I highly recommend Domination. It's going to get you snowballing in the early and mid game, which is what you're really playing for in the first place whenever you do pick Warwick. If I know I'm going to be doing a lot of counter jungling, or if I think the enemy might be trying to counter jungle me because they have a really strong mid pusher and a top pusher, I'll take something like Ghost Poro. This will give me a lot of vision when I'm counter jungling or fighting off enemies. And then I also like to take Sudden Impact. It's really great whenever you use your Q dash, whenever you dash through them, ultimate, or come out of the bush. It's going to be giving you lethality and magic penetration, which is great since Warwick spells do magic damage and his autos do AD. It really works out nicely. This is the main secondary tree I take: Domination, Ghost Poro, Sudden Impact. The only other one I'll take in the Domination tree, so this would be the one I take second most often, would be Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter. This is whenever I am smurfing, especially I want to be all over around the map. I'm not necessarily worried about only counter jungling or primarily counter jungling. I'm trying to snowball the whole map, so I'm trying to get around very quickly. And in this case, I'll take Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter instead of the Ghost Poro. Like I said, these are the 2 most secondary pages I take on Jungle Warwick, the Ghost Poro and Sudden Impact, and then the second most one I take is Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter. Now let's talk about the 3rd best page you can take on Warwick Jungle. By far the 3rd best secondary tree that you can take on Warwick Jungle would be Sorcery. You're going to be going for the Ultimate Hat and Celerity. The Ultimate Hat is going to make your ultimates on a ridiculously short cooldown the more and more you use it, which is great for getting picks in the mid and late game. This will hurt your early game just a little bit, pre-6, so if you are going to be doing a lot of counter jungling, this probably isn't the page for you. The Ultimate Hat and Celerity are also great if you intend on building Righteous Glory, because you're going to be getting the extra damage. Plus, since your ultimate is going to be at more, you can make use of those super jump ults as well. Now that we've gone over the 3 best rune pages you can take on Warwick, let's talk about a few of the worst ones and why you shouldn't pick them. One of the worst Warwick rune pages that I see very often would have to be Domination is your primary tree and the Precision is your secondary tree. The huge problem with this is Warwick doesn't have a good choice when it comes to Domination tree. Dark Harvest takes way too long to build up any reasonable damage, and since Warwick's an early game, mid game jungler, it's definitely not the right choice for him. Taking Electrocute isn't ideal either because Warwick needs a little bit more sustained damage for longer 2v2, 1v1 fights. He's not really about bursting down his target before they can get away. He already has the movement speed bonus and a bunch of lunges. He doesn't have to burst them down. Overall, that hurts him. And then the most alluring keystone in the Domination tree would have to be Predator. I've tried this many times. A huge problem with taking Predator is the fact that you have to have boots. This is really bad for Warwick because he does a lot of counter jungling and is very aggressive in the early game, and you can't buy boots to start out with. You have to buy your jungle item to get the extra XP. So right off the bat, you can't even use your keystone, and then on your first back, you'd have to buy boots to be able to use it, but on Warwick's first back, he needs to buy T-Mat for his clears. It's honestly not optimal whatsoever. I highly suggest staying away from Predator. Just not worth it. Stay away from the Domination tree as your main tree. Of course, like I said, as a secondary tree, it's one of the better ones on Warwick Jungle. One final rune page that I see people ask me a lot about would have to be taking Resolve as your primary and Precision is your secondary tree. Now, typically, whenever Warwick players take Resolve as their primary tree, they either don't know what they're doing or they're still stuck on running only Cinder Warwick and they hate running Warrior or Blood Razor. So typically what you're going to see is a Grasp the Undying for the Keystone or an Aftershock. Aftershock is by far the worst one you can take because it's just a little bit extra burst if your E is up or if you're level 6 for your ultimate. Overall, not very strong. If you are stuck on going Cinder Warwick only, you would want to take Grasp, Unflinching, Conditioning, Revitalize, and then down the Precision tree taking Alacrity and Last Stand. Overall, I don't recommend this page because taking Resolve for your main tree is going to hurt your early game damage. You miss out on a bunch of attack speed since you're not taking Precision as your primary tree. That's honestly the biggest reason why I highly don't recommend this page, because it's going to hurt your early game counter jungling and ganking a fair amount. If you do want to play tank champion in Season 8, Warwick's definitely not the champion to do that with. There's very strong tank champions out there right now like Rammus, Sejuani, Zac, and kind of Shyvana that you really shouldn't be playing Warwick as a tank, because if the enemy team picks a tank and it goes mid-late game, you're going to lose as the Warwick tank because you don't have as much in your kit in terms of CC and pill as those other tanks do have. Warwick starting items are always going to be the same. Always go Machete, Regen Bead, and Warding Totem. You're never going to want to change this. Never start with Refillable Potion. Warwick has plenty of sustain in the jungle to be above 70% HP at all times, pretty much no matter what. You need the Regen Bead, that way on your first back it'll be much easier to buy your team at. Since Regen Bead does build into it, that's going to be a free 150 gold. Really going to help you out a lot in the early game. Before you go back on Warwick, make sure you at least have 1050 gold, that way you can get your team at. It's very important that you always rush team at as your first item. This is going to make Warwick's clears super fast, his gank super strong, and especially increase the power of his 1v1s and 2v2s. After you do have your team at, go straight for your Boots of Speed into your Saber. Always go for Saber over Stalker's Blade or Tracker's Knife. Stalker's Blade, the slow isn't that useful, and with the wards on Warwick, you don't really need it, especially since we're usually going to be taking the Ghost Poro anyways. Not to mention that with the Saber and the Red Smite, it's going to be making your 1v1s and 2v2s absolutely insane, since it'll be taking 20% less damage, which is going to help you to stay alive for longer so you can heal for longer off of your autos, Qs, and ultimate. After you have your team at Boots of Speed and Skirmisher's Saber, you need to upgrade your Skirmisher's Saber into Warrior, Blood Razor, or Cinderhulk as fast as you can. If the enemy team has a relatively squishy team without a front line, and you intend on doing lots of counter jungling, I highly recommend going Warrior. The AD Skellion works great with your Q and ultimate. If the enemy team has a pretty strong front line and the enemy jungler is fairly tanky, I'd highly recommend going for Blood Razor. And if your team doesn't have a tank, or if you haven't really done anything in the early game and you haven't been counter jungling, you should go for the Cinderhulk, because you're not going to do much in the mid game since you never got ahead in the early game. After you have upgraded your Skirmisher Saber, you need to upgrade your boots into tier 2 boots. I usually go for Ninja Tabbies because I can avoid most CC with my Q and ultimate anyways, so I really don't feel like Merc Treads add much value. After I have my tier 2 boots, either Ninja Tabbies or Merc Treads, I will go for Titanic Hydra. Now, Titanic Hydra is absurd. After you get this with your other items, you'll be bursting down people like crazy. Around 20-25 minutes into the game, you'll be one of the strongest characters on the map. Ultimately, your core should look something like this: your tier 2 boots, your upgraded version of your Skirmisher's Saber, and your Titanic Hydra. For those of you who haven't noticed, Warwick only has 3 core items. The rest of them are completely optional. My favorite optional items on Warwick are the Frozen Gauntlets, Righteous Glory, Guardian Angel, Maw of Mortius, Spirit Visage, Thornmail, and Randuin's Omen. Each one of them is highly situational, so don't just build them at random. If the enemy team is primarily AD, after I have my 3 core items, I'll go for something like Frozen Gauntlets, or if the enemy team is mostly ranged characters and they're AD, I'll get a Righteous Glory to help close distance and pick them off. Also, Righteous Glory synergizes really well if you do go for Sorcery Tree second tree and take Ultimate Hat and Celerity. Going for Guardian's Angel is if you want more damage if the enemy team is really squishy and really bursty. It works really well for your 4th item. That way, if they do kill you, just get back up and keep fighting. Maw of Mortius is only if the enemy team is almost all AP, basically only for when the enemy team has 4 or more AP characters on their team. And Spirit Visage is if the enemy team has 2 or more AP characters on their team, and you'd get this probably for your 5th or 6th item. Thornmail is if the enemy team has 2 or more AD characters on their team, and Randuin's Omen is if the enemy team has 2 big crit champions or more, so something like a Jhin Yasuo or a Tristana Twitch. And that's going to wrap up this Warwick Rune build guide. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. There's a lot of good information packed in here. If you guys did like the video and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.